mostly. You know what? I hate it when Christians come into church lying. Open your Bibles to Luke 9.
Come on, Dave.
Now, I gotta be on the road by 10, so we're gonna make this quick. Yeah, you're with me, literally. Okay. Luke 9 actually marks, in verse 51, marks a very significant turning point in the life of Jesus. This is the point where he starts his travels to Jerusalem. And from Luke 9:51 to Luke 19:28, that's the journey to Jerusalem. And Luke is the only one that records it. Isn't that interesting? Those 10 chapters you can't find in any of the other Gospels, because Luke is the only one that records them. And I actually love this. This is one of my favorite parts of the Gospels, is the journey to Jerusalem. I don't know, I like to look at it like my own life. You know, because Jesus is going to do something very significant, and he knows it. Very radical for this whole world's sake, and you get to see him really preparing his heart, preparing his mind. You even see him prepare the people around him for what's going to happen, even though they really don't have a clue what's going on, as we're going to see in a minute here. In Luke 9, we start off in verse 51. It says, as the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And I think there's a whole sermon in that in and of itself, about he resolutely is going to his death. In other words, there's nothing going to turn him from side to side. And he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven and destroy them? But Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then he and his disciples went to another village. So, Jesus knows he's going to Jerusalem to die. And he's preparing for that, and he doesn't have a whole lot of time like he had in the past. Normally he would have just walked along and got to the village, and what would have happened. But at this point, he didn't want to waste time, so he actually sends an envoy. He sends people ahead saying, hey, go prepare the village for my coming. I want to have the most impact that I can have, and I've got to go. You know, almost like this morning. So he sends an envoy, and the Samaritans, now this is probably a village that Jesus had visited before. You know, so they knew who he was, and he knew who they were, most likely. And the envoy comes back with a message. And what was that message?
No thanks.
Yeah! Very simply, go ahead and skip us. How do you think Jesus felt about that? We'll ask another question. Why? Why do you think they said, skip us? That had a lot to do with it. He was Jewish, and where was he going? Going to Jerusalem. And so they were like, oh, we're just lowly Samaritans, and you're on your way to Jerusalem. So, what prevented them? Prejudice. That's what prevented them from listening to Jesus. They had, in their own minds, a prejudice of either what he was going to say, or how he would be, or how he would react, or even how they would react. And they just didn't even want him to come into the village. When he was actually willing. He was like, listen, I want to come to your village. And they're like, no, you're a Jew, you're going to Jerusalem, forget it. We don't want to hear the, you got to repent and become Jewish again speech. And so they had this prejudice that prevented them from listening to Jesus. Doesn't that happen to us a lot of times? We have a preconceived notion about something in life and it prevents us from whatever that is. You know, we're so funny that way. Aren't we that way with people?
Oh, yeah.
How many of you have ever had a scenario something like this? You know, I'll use my spouse, but it could be anybody.
Danger.
Danger, yeah. Alright, I'm on my way home. And I've got to talk to Sarah. I know I need to talk to Sarah. Yeah, but you know what, if I come in and I start saying this, then she's just going to say that. You know, if she says that, I know she's going to say that because she always says that. And that's just going to make me mad. This is going to start a fight. And if this starts a fight, then, you know, this is going to be horrible. I'm not going to get dinner. And why does she have a right to have that attitude? You know, I've really got something to talk. And she's not going to listen to me in my heart because, you know, she's just going to have this notion or she's going to have this idea in her head. And I know she's already not going to listen to me.
Sure.
Oh, you know what? So forget it. You know what? She never listens to me. You know, it always ends up like this. And you know what? Have you ever done that? And then when you get home, you walk in and she's like, "Hi, honey," and you're like, "Hi." She's already offended me, even though I haven't even talked to her. Because of a scenario in my mind that never happened.
Come on. Yep.
Don't we do that with people?
Oh, yeah.
We do that all the time. And it prevents us from having the relationship that we need to have with that person. But the same thing is true with Christ. They had a preconceived notion of who Jesus was, what he wanted, and why he was there, and it prevented them from coming to Christ. We can do those very same things in our own heart. Either with people in here, and that prevents us from coming to Christ, or even with Jesus himself. How many of you have ever asked yourself, why would Jesus forgive me? Although we've got plenty of scenarios in the Bible, we start believing the ones in our head. And it prevents us from having a relationship with Christ. So, he gets this envoy back, and I'm sure he's crushed. Like, man, I've only got a little bit of time left here on earth. And I want to have the best and biggest impact possible. And they don't even want to be around me. And I think James and John looked at Jesus and probably saw disappointment on his face.
Yeah.
And they're like, we got a solution for it. And it's a good one. Jesus, I know what we can do. Man, we've been healing people. We've been performing miracles. We've been driving out demons. I gotta try this. Jesus, fire from heaven. Come on. It's Elijah times. Man, I feel it. The prophets of Baal. Let's go. We got fire. Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's take them out. Now, what were they thinking? Why would they mention this? I mean, seriously, what were they thinking? These guys are sitting there thinking, oh, no, you didn't.